Welcome back everyone, and in today's tutorial we will be looking at variables in classes. It's not exactly how you would expect it, so I shall show you two different ways, the wrong way and the right way of using variables in classes. First, I'll include the string class as one of our files, as we'll be using strings in today's tutorial. String is just another word for text, so whenever we're outputting any kind of text, it's just another word for string. Let's begin by including a string class under your IO stream and above your namespace. So first of all, I shall show you the wrong way to use variables. The reason being is because it's a very common mistake that beginners tend to make. So add your access modifier public. Now you want to make a name variable. Name is a string. So make a variable called name and set it equal to the type string. Now we have a variable in my class called name. So as discussed in the previous tutorial, in order to use the things within that class, you need to create an object. To create an object, first type the name of the class and then the name of the object. We can name our object Jaguar. With this object named Jaguar, we can access the variables using the name of the variable and the dot separator. Once we have the name of the variable from my class, we can set it equal to any name we like. For example, Big Cat. So this variable is equal to Big Cat. So when it comes to printing out Jaguar.name, it prints out Big Cat on the screen. This seems to have run smoothly, so why is it considered to be the wrong way of using variables? The reason is basically that making class variables public is not generally a good idea. Reason being, whenever you leave your programs public, it leaves them open to being messed up. So generally, programmers prefer to make their variables private. There are some exceptions, but this is a general practice, to make the variables in your class private. You may be recollecting from the previous tutorial that I had said if you make your variables private, you cannot access them in main. So when you try to run the program, you'll get an error. So what do you do? Basically, nothing outside the class can access your variables. So a public function needs to be created inside your class in order to have access to your variables. So we'll delete all of this. Our variable is already private, so now we can make public functions inside our class so we can access the variables. This will enable us to use our public functions outside our class in our main. We'll begin by writing public, and everything written under here will be public. We want to do two things with this variable name. First, we want to be able to change the name, which means set it equal to different names, such as set it equal to dog, set it equal to pig, etc. So we want to be able to set the name. Secondly, we want to get the name, which means we want to return the value dog or return the value pig, etc. So those are two functions, one to set the variable and the other to get the variable. To set the variable, we set it equal to void because it won't be returning anything to us. We're just changing the variable. So we type set and then the variable name. After this, you use the string, which we call x. We shall be passing in a string such as Big Cat and make that variable equal to the value x. So when we set a name and we want to change it, we need to just set it equal to the variable x and then set it equal to any value we're passing. So if we type set name cat, cat will be x and our name variable will become equal cat. That is called our setter function. So we've built our setter function, how to change the name variable. Now we need to build a function to access it. As we want the name in return, we type string. The name is a string, basically just text. So programmers will just write get instead of set. Why? Because they want to get the name. So type get name. It won't take any parameters. And in the body, just return the variable. As we don't have direct access to this variable, we need to go through functions. So there are two different functions, one to change the variable and one to get the value of the variable. So now we can access the variable through public functions. So the only thing that has access to these private variables are other things inside this class. Therefore, when you make those functions public, you can access the variables. If we want to use these functions, we'll need an object. So type my class and another Jaguar object. We can use the functions from that class by using the object name and then a dot separator. We then need to set a value to it. We then copy and paste and set a name equal to, say, Kitty Cat. So now the name variable is equal to the name Kitty Cat. So we've gone through a function which was public to access it rather than accessing it directly. Now to print it, we can't just type Jaguar.name because we don't have access to that variable. We need to go through the function getName, and the function then returns the name. This is simply a way of making a private a public. So when we build and run this, it works. Kitty Cat is printed on the screen. To recap, we wanted to access this private name variable. We couldn't access it directly, otherwise it would give us errors. So we had to build public functions to change the name and to get the name. So later, when we wanted to use that function in our program, we created an object. When we wanted to use anything inside our class, we typed object.separator then function. Then we ran the program and it ran smoothly. So that was the wrong way of using variables and the right way. Do remember, good programmers and software engineers would not make their variables public, as it's not best practice. So if you want a job as a computer engineer, just make sure you make your variables private. Thank you once again for your time, and we'll meet again in the next tutorial.